If you're dying to know what's going on with Lex Luthor's plans for a league of his own, or when Mr. Mind will finally get around to forming that monster Society of Evil, or like any of Batman's Knightmare stuff, well, sorry about it. The DCEU's dead, and so too are all of these post-credit teasers. Technically, Zack Snyder's Knightmare sequences aren't actually post-credit scenes, but if you're like us and you consider the epilogue segment of the Snyder Cut to be one glorified post-credit sequence, then these count. Arguably the biggest missed opportunity in the entire DCEU, the post-apocalyptic Knightmare future could have been something big if Snyder had been allowed to continue his Justice League story. While some say that Snyder's trilogy would have killed the DCEU for good, at least the Knightmare timeline would have been a far more exciting way to go out than Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Snyder's Justice League not only introduced Darkseid as the franchise's biggest bad, but it also teased a team-up between Batman, Flash, Cyborg, Mira, Deathstroke, and the Joker as they're hunted by a brainwashed Superman who blames Batman for Lois Lane's death.
Need me to help you undo this world you created by letting her die.
Justice League 2 would have been wild, and it might have raised the stakes like few superhero films have before. Although we finally got to see Zack Snyder's vision for Justice League years after Joss Whedon ruined his film, the damage had tragically already been done. The entire Knightmare story will never be told, nor will we ever see more of this Cyborg or Martian Manhunter. It's a shame really, but here's hoping that whatever Justice League story that the new DC universe will cook up, it will be as grand and epic as anything the DCEU could have done. Could the most egregious failure of the DCEU be its treatment of Superman? No, not Snyder's distinct vision for Man of Steel or Batman v Superman, but rather the studio's failure to thrust the character firmly into the spotlight. Following 2017's Justice League, Superman was only referenced briefly, or worse, appeared from the neck down. There was never a Man of Steel 2, despite a pitch from Mission Impossible writer-director Christopher McQuarrie. But all of that changed after 2021's release of Justice League. Following the success of the Snyder Cut, Warner Brothers brought Henry Cavill back as Superman in 2023's Black Adam, teasing a battle between the Man of Steel and Kahndaq champion played by Dwayne Johnson. Cavill then followed that up with,
"I am back as Superman."
Except the whole thing fell apart in less than 2 months. Unbeknownst to Cavill and many of his fans, DC Films was rebranded as DC Studios, and the entire franchise was reset. Cavill was let go, and it was soon announced that James Gunn would write and direct his own Superman film, this time with David Corenswet as the lead. But hey, maybe there's hope for Cavill in the MCU. Compared to the refreshing and empowering tone of the first Wonder Woman, it's understandable why so many were disappointed with its sequel. Whether you enjoyed Wonder Woman 1984 or hated its campy 80s attitude toward the character, Diana's DCEU journey is one that will go down in the superhero history books. Unfortunately, the mid-credit scene tease in WW84 will not. Earlier in the movie, Wonder Woman recounts the story of Asteria, an Amazon warrior who dons the Golden Warrior armor to protect her people as they ventured to Themyscira.
Asteria sacrificed herself for a better day for others.
Except she doesn't. In the film's mid-credit scene, we see Asteria save a baby from danger before disappearing into a crowd. It's a small scene, and it's fun to see OG Wonder Woman Linda Carter back after all these years. But because the DCEU wasn't actually building toward anything grand at this point, Asteria's inclusion here is nothing more than mild fan service. Had there been a third Wonder Woman, perhaps director Patty Jenkins would have revisited the character and even brought her in to help Diana with her next crisis. But as it stands now, any questions we still have about the DCEU Wonder Woman or her allies will sadly never be addressed, including what Asteria has been up to for the past couple of thousand years. For a while, there was a lot of debate as to whether 2023's Blue Beetle would be considered a part of the DCEU or the DCU reboot. So, which is it? Well, it's a little bit of both. While a second Blue Beetle movie is unlikely, an animated series continuation set in the new DCU is in development, with a projected release date of 2026. Gunn's also confirmed that Xolo Maridueña will continue to play Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, in the future. Still, this means that the Ted Cord is Alive tease at the very end of the 2023 film will never be officially addressed in the DC Extended Universe. It's a small moment, but the mid-credits reveal concerning Ted Cord's survival was an exciting surprise for longtime fans. Cord is a beloved comic book character for a reason, and he's even returned to life in recent DC comics. But unlike the comics, the film's tease largely falls flat, and with the DCEU's fade-out, we may never get to see this plotline followed up as intended. At least we'll get to see Jaime Reyes in the DCU's future. With David Ayer in the director's chair, 2016 Suicide Squad was an ambitious project that was completely panned by critics. Even Ayer sought to distance himself from the final product, noting that the studio had been far too involved in the final cut. But if there's one thing about Suicide Squad that actually works, it's the inclusion of Ben Affleck's Batman. In a mid-credit scene, Bruce Wayne meets with Amanda Waller for some information on the whereabouts of his soon-to-be super friends. Waller reveals that she knows all about Wayne's Dark Knight activities.
You look tired. Should stop working nights.
But then nobody ever does anything with this information. More, the end of Suicide Squad sets up a potential Justice League versus Task Force X rivalry. The two teams never meet on screen. It's especially disappointing because Waller and Wayne clearly have interesting chemistry. The DCEU could have easily gone the route of Justice League Unlimited, establishing a frenemy relationship between the two. Later rumors of a cancelled Michael Keaton-led Batman Beyond movie would prove this to be a major missed opportunity, as JLU reveals that Waller is directly responsible for Terry McGinnis's creation by using Wayne's DNA. Even if Suicide Squad didn't intend to set this up, a Batman Beyond film could have easily had its roots in this scene. Maybe with Viola Davis potentially reprising her role in the DCU, there's a possibility the new franchise could pick up where the DCEU left Wayne and Waller off. In 2017's Justice League, replacement director Joss Whedon reworked a sequence by original director Zack Snyder between Lex Luthor and Deathstroke, in which Luthor suggests an alternative to the newly public Justice League.
Put it plainly, shouldn't we have a league of our own?
Whether you call them the Injustice League, Injustice Gang, or the Legion of Doom, this was clearly setting up a cabal of supervillains to rival the world's greatest superheroes. No doubt this would have been an exciting prospect for the growing franchise, setting up rivalries that would, theoretically, last for years to come. Unfortunately, neither of these characters was seen or heard from again, apart from the superior version of that same scene in Snyder's cut of the film, that is. It was especially disappointing given that Joe Manganiello's Deathstroke was set to play a major role in Ben Affleck's made version of the Batman. But the poor reaction to Justice League killed any hope of that project ever happening. The Deathstroke plotline was abandoned, and Luthor's dream for a powerhouse group of supervillains died a quick and unceremonious death. It's one thing to leave an open-ended tease that'll set up a sequel, but it's another thing entirely to tease the exact same idea 2 films in a row with no follow-through. But that's exactly what Shazam and its sequel, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, did. At the end of Shazam, the villainous worm Mastermind visits an incarcerated Dr. Sivana and offers a partnership.
Oh, what fun we're going to have together. The 7 realms are about to be ours.
Then, 2 years later in Fury of the Gods, Mr. Mind returns to meet with Sivana again before leaving the mad scientist turned sorcerer for the second time.
It takes me a very long time to get places, okay?
While the Fury of the Gods scene is played more for humor, both tease 2 of Shazam's biggest villains teaming up for revenge against the Wizard and his champion, and the DCEU never delivered. While Shazam produced both a sequel and a spin-off, neither made good on the first film's promise to see the monster society of evil formed. Plus, the poor reception to Fury of the Gods meant that any actual team-up between these villains would never occur in the DCEU, rendering these teases completely and utterly useless. On its own, Shazam is a fun movie, but the fact that its main post-credits tease is only used as a joke in the second installment just proves why the sequel ultimately failed. Shazam! Fury of the Gods didn't just have one pointless mid- or post-credit scene, it had 2. At the very end of the film, Peacemaker characters and Argus agents Amelia Harcourt and John Economos tracked down Billy Batson to make him an offer.
How would you like to join the Justice?
Yes! 1,000 times yes! Oh my gosh, I've been dreaming about this!
Unfortunately for Billy, who's hoping for a little one-on-one time with Wonder Woman, Harcourt and Economos' offer is for a spot in the Justice Society, not the Justice League.
The Justice Society is different than the Justice League because of how words work.
Harcourt and Economos leave and Billy continues to pester them, and we're left with the notion that Shazam and the Justice Society will meet in the future. Of course, the franchise never brings this up again. Fury of the Gods was one of the last DCEU installments before the company-wide reboot. Things get a little confusing in that Peacemaker is still considered canon to James Gunn's new DCU, except for those Justice League cameos at the end of Season 1. So is it possible for Shazam to make his way into the DCU? The response to Fury of the Gods makes this highly unlikely, and it's far more probable that the DCU will forget about this mid-credit tease entirely going forward. To say that the DCEU completely dropped the ball with the Justice League at its end would be an understatement. Henry Cavill's Superman was dumped after Black Adam. Ben Affleck's Batman return in The Flash was overshadowed by Michael Keaton and George Clooney. Wonder Woman was relegated to 2 lackluster cameos, and Ray Fisher's Cyborg was written out entirely. Then there's Flash and Aquaman. After their Peacemaker reunion, Barry Allen and Arthur Curry get together again to bar hop at the end of The Flash. Barry rants about time travel, but it just sorta falls on deaf ears.
Look, you're missing the larger premise here. In my timeline, when I
It's a poor representation of these iconic heroes and clearly a weak attempt at humor, but the scene also teases the possibility of the League exploring the greater multiverse, and it's not the first time. Back during the Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, DCEU Flash momentarily bled into the Flash television series reality, making it clear that the DCEU had multiversal potential.
Oh my god, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what.
You okay? I told Victor this was possible.
But due to the terrible reception of the Flash film, the DCEU never had the chance to explore the multiverse the way the MCU has since Avengers Endgame. Despite these small teases and the Flash exploring that realm, the franchise was axed before it had the opportunity. But who knows, maybe one day the DCU could venture into the multiverse and return to the DCEU, at least temporarily.